Welcome to the very first episode of Born and Raised, a podcast from the European Social Science Genetics Network. My name is Rafael and Aysu. I'm Associate Professor of Political Science at Uppsala University.
And I'm Aysu Assistant Professor at the Department of Psychiatry at Amsterdam University Medical Center.
How do you feel about listening to your own voice in headphones like this?
I'm completely weirded out.
It seems to be a very common phenomenon that people are. I've gotten used to it over the years, but nonetheless, it is something that we'll have to live with for a bit now.
Yes, hearing my own voice as I'm speaking is kind of fine. Listening to the podcasts, I don't know. Maybe I won't.
Maybe you won't. I'll be cutting it, so I will have to. So I feel like out of solidarity, you should, maybe. Okay, maybe not. We'll see. What are you drinking tonight?
I'm drinking a beer.
A beer of what
An IPA.
type? An IPA. Do you like it?
I do like it, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a nice IPA. It's not too bitter.
Out of 0 to 5, what would you give it?
A 4.
A 4. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, I have the refined taste buds of a 5-year-old. So I am drinking a Pepsi Max cherry flavored.
On a Friday night?
On a Friday night? Jesus. Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Like anything cherry flavored will float with me. And I am a soda person and not a beer person. So that's just who I am. And I'm going to take a nice big gulp of the Pepsi right now.
That did sound like advertisement. Completely.
So we'll be doing these for a bit. We have a series of episodes where we have talked to some figures in the field of social science genetics. So for this very first episode, we have talked to Abdel Abdellaoui, who is an associate professor at the Amsterdam University Medical Center at the Department of Psychiatry. I guess he would call himself a behavior geneticist, first and foremost.
Yes, he would.
We had a conversation about the nature of social science genetics as a field, a little bit about its history, what it is that we actually do, and a little bit of where the field is headed in the future. I thought this was a very nice conversation to have. What did you think?
Well, we learned one interesting piece of news from Abdel and also one fun fact about him that I actually didn't know and was very surprising. So I hope that's going to be interesting to everyone.
I agree. That was very surprising. So
stay tuned.
Dear listener, you're going to have to stay tuned because you're going to have to wait until the end to find this very, very surprising piece of information about our dear colleague Abdel Abdellaoui out. And without further ado, let's cut to his office at the AUMC and see you later.
See you later.
Welcome, Abdel Abdellaoui, to our little podcast. We're sitting in your office at the AUMC, the Amsterdam University Medical Center.
Yes.
What's it like sitting in a hospital?
I have worked before at the university, and I have to say it feels quite the same, but that's because we're in a little corner with a lot of other researchers tucked away. The difference is that in the university, when you walk in the building, you see students, and here you see patients.
Right, but you don't. So I guess you don't actually work a lot in the clinical side of things.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
No.
None.
None, actually, exactly. I guess that applies to you as well. Aysu, you're on your home turf here, right?
Yes, I am. I do think it feels a little bit differently, especially if you use the main entrance to the hospital coming here, because then you go through the whole actual hospital and see patients and actual real doctors. Although if you use this building's entrance, it's basically just a university.
Yeah, but once in a while, because this is the psychiatry building, you'll see an interesting, different type of patient.
I guess, that is true.
Yeah. I've had visitors visit, and then I had to explain, oh, sorry, this is a psychiatric
wing.
Yeah.
I get I get university vibes from this building, like the very the architecture of it feels sort of like it could be a university as well. So yeah. Could you tell us a little bit about your like background, academically speaking and scientifically speaking, how you ended up where you are currently at?
Yeah, sure. So I studied psychology and did the Master of Neuroscience. Before that, I did informatics. I studied computers, but after 2 years, I found out it was quite boring. So I switched to studying humans, and I quickly became very interested in the brain. And so chose the Master of Neuroscience, and within that, there was a genetics course that made me fascinated with genetics. And I had a job at one of the there was a job opening at one of the spread by one of the people that gave the genetics course at the Netherlands Twin Register. So they were giving the genetics courses, and they used twins to study heritability of a wide range of characteristics. So my first job was there while I was a student. I was working on the side calling twins to that didn't fill in their questionnaires or that we lost their addresses from. And then I got to know people from that department. And after I finished my master's, they offered me to do a PhD there. It was supposed to be about major depression, but it turned into a thesis about a mix of population genetics and behavioral genetics. So the title of my thesis was Behavior Genetics, with an arrow in between that points to both directions, because we're usually interested in finding genes that influence behavior. But in studying their data set, I found out about some processes where the behavior of the people actually impacted the genetic makeup of the population. And I've been interested in that ever since. Demographic processes like migration, mate choice, how many children people have, those are all things that influence the genetic makeup of a population. And across all the different studies that I was involved in, it became clear that social inequality was one of the main drivers of all these processes. So that now has become the focus of much of my work of the past 5 years or so. And that's also how I became part of the social science genetics network. Yeah.
Cool.
So how would you define social science genetics? I mean, I guess what you've just described is a specific part of it that you are especially interested in and have been working on. But how would you define social science genetics, and how do you think the field has evolved since you've been involved in it in the last 10 years? Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, so it is quite a young field. I think the field, in my optics, at least the modern version of it, started when they linked genetic variants to educational attainment, which you led some of those studies.
Starting from the second one, yes.
But broadly speaking, it links social behaviors, social outcomes to genetics. So basically the lowest level of organization that you can look at, which is our genetics. That's like the main starting point, and then trying to link that to like the highest level, to like culture and social outcomes. And there's a lot of stuff happening in between. And that makes this field, this young field, really challenging and open to a lot of criticism. But I think also it makes it very exciting and very broad and very interdisciplinary and very hard to capture like within one study or a couple of studies. I think it's still a very young field with a lot of potential to become very big.
Did you expect it to get this big when you started to work on social science genetics?
No, well, I wasn't really aware of that I was working on social science genetics. I think this is one of those fields that you just roll in. Or so I was doing behavior genetics, psychiatric genetics, a bit of population genetics, and then soon I found out that a lot of the stuff I do actually fits better in a mold of social science genetics. So no, I didn't expect it to become this big and successful. I think even though it's young, it's already quite successful. And yeah, because I was expecting it to get a lot more pushback, which it did in the beginning.
Certainly did.
Yeah.
Get a lot of pushback in the beginning.
Yeah, a lot of people, like for understandable reasons, don't like it when you link things like genetics to social outcomes, especially outcomes that are sort of valued by society, like education or intelligence. And that's because of like the misuse in the past, but also because a lot of people, I think, maybe interpret genetics as something immutable, and so they don't like the idea of someone being born to end up in a certain social layer or exhibit certain social behaviors, which is not at all what our conclusions are. But I think that's part of where some of the pushback comes from. Yeah. Don't you think? So you said I think you also experienced some of this in the beginning.
Some of the pushback, yes. I mean, when I first started with EA2, there was also a lot of pushback from the medical community. I mean, it wasn't only the society that was not willing to accept that there's any genetic component to behavior, but also medical scientists were really opposed to us. Even a lot of them, I mean, not all of them, of course, but a lot of them were opposed to us looking at genetics in relation to any social outcome. Not necessarily because they didn't think that genetics had an impact, but mostly because they thought it shouldn't be looked at.
Yeah.
Which always seemed strange to me because it's a very normative way of looking at science. But I feel like at least the pushback from the scientific community has definitely gone down a little bit over the years. So now at least everyone expects that good things can come out of it.
Yeah, I think so too. Do you think part of this is also because our studies eventually showed that a lot of these relationships between genetics and social outcomes, they either influence health or are influenced by health outcomes. So it's very relevant for medical scientists to at least be aware of our results and what we are studying.
Yeah, I agree.
So from one perspective, I guess you could say that social science genetics is just the interdisciplinary field where either geneticists look at social science outcomes, or where social scientists import sort of genetic explanations into their work. What would you say that like either of these fields, like separately, could learn from this? What do you think social scientists can learn from importing genetics, and vice versa?
Oh, that's a good question, because Aysu comes from like purely social science background, right?
Yes.
From economics.
Yeah, me too, actually. Political
You
science.
too? Yeah, political science. I come from, I guess you could call psychology also social science, but neuroscience is that's more towards the biological side.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think so. What I learned is so a lot of the stuff I learned about social science or social science genetics, I found out because I was looking at genetics, and then I saw things that forced me to dive deeper into things like social inequality and the history of it, and how complicated it is, and how difficult of a problem it is to solve, and how many things already have been tried to battle social inequalities, and the discussions that have been had about should we even try to solve social inequality? Isn't it also a good thing? So I think those kinds of studies, and also from a historical point of view, I think it would be good for geneticists to educate themselves on that, because I had to. I was forced, sort of, by my studies, and it helped me understand a lot of things a lot better. What social sciences can learn, so I think maybe you could answer this question better, but my experience with social scientists, a lot of it comes from doing grant proposals, for example, and then submitting it to social science committees, is that they grossly underestimate the importance of genetics, and that genetics matters at all. It's like after, I think this also has like historical reasons, like after the whole eugenics movement, there was sort of a very strong pushback from the social sciences to diminish the role of genetics, and because they were sort of traumatized by what it can do to you if you overestimate the importance of genetics. And because of that, I think a lot of their studies just discount the role of genetics, and therefore come to very wrong conclusions. They don't know about the confounders that come from genetics.
So looking at it from the other vantage point, and I know this is where many of your contributions have been, what genetics as a field can learn from the social sciences in terms of the integration between these two that have been separated for like 100 years. Like what's the other direction of influence, would you say?
So what genetics has learned from
studying social processes.
Studying social processes. So I think a lot of the processes that were very interesting to geneticists in the beginning, when the field of genetics itself was conceptualized like a century ago, they were very interested in things like assortative mating, so how genetics move around in a population. And I think at least in the studies that I was involved in, I was surprised to see how much of those very hardcore genetics concepts were actually driven by these by things that social scientists are interested in. I was a little bit surprised by that those two fields aren't communicating more with each other, because I think they can help each other out a lot. Yeah.
I think there's maybe also, in terms of methods, the two fields have things to learn from each other. Like, for example, Mendelian randomization being just an instrumental variable methodology applied to genetics is a good example, I think. So especially, economics is a field that is good at statistics and statistical analysis in general. So I think the combination of social sciences or economics with genetics, in that sense, also has been productive in terms of the two fields borrowing methodologies from each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing that you mentioned, Abdel, initially that I agree with a lot that something like genetic confounding has been vastly underestimated across many of the social sciences, and has in fact led to a lot of published research that just doesn't hold up, actually. But I think looking at it from the other vantage point, the reverse is also true, that a lot of what can appear as genetic signal, naively speaking, is also environmentally confounded, and that I think is still something that has yet to sort of be fully absorbed by at least maybe medical genetics and fields like that. But
that's true. Yeah, the way that genetic and environmental influences are intertwined in families by things like associative mating, but also by geographic clustering, the way we organize our societies, cluster certain genetic influences in certain geographic environments that are not random with respect to environment. So I have heard social scientists going like, of course, that's they say that's what we're trying to tell you, that these things are not genetic, they're environment. But I think we're finding out that it's both, and that they're very hard to separate from
exactly, each other. The fact that it's both makes both of those signals confounded by each other. And that's both the maybe the very, very tricky part about this field, but also the thing that makes it very fascinating to a large extent.
I want to ask you a bit about the work that you've been doing in terms of communicating scientific results to the public. So you've been very present on social media platforms like Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. But also, I think you've been doing a lot of podcasts, a lot of news interviews and stuff. So how is your experience? Well, first of all, I guess, how important do you think this is, and how much impact do you think it has? And what's been your experience in terms of the reaction that you've gotten from the public in general in this area?
So this is also something that I had to learn while doing it, because sort of I was forced by the things I was finding and publishing. One of the papers I think that were most sort of controversial, if you will, or prone to misunderstanding at least, was about this geographic clustering of genetic variants and what kind of effect a brain drain has on it. The article is called "Genetic Correlates of Social Stratification in Great Britain." So when we wrote this paper, we didn't mean to write a paper about social inequality, but about just the relationship between geography and genetics. But it turned out a lot of that was just driven by social inequality. But when the first version we had of that article, we posted as a preprint online. So we just posted the preprint and nothing else, and submitted it to the journal. And the journal doesn't allow you to talk to any journalists until it's peer-reviewed. And it got a lot of negative reactions, people calling us eugenicists, Nazis, and whatever you can think of. And then a year later, after we revised it and it was peer-reviewed by Nature Human Behavior, they put out a press release that we gave a lot of thought. We ourselves also provided like a general summary and frequently asked questions document, which we sent to journalists. And we did a lot of interviews beforehand, one with a guy from Nature who wrote a very nice article about it. So we had a lot of things planned, like on the day of the publication. So on the day of the publication, the peer-reviewed version came out with all these other things on the side, and journalists that were well prepared. And then that reached a lot more people, but the reception was a lot different than when we put out the preprint. So I learned that it matters a lot how you present your article to the public. So I've been motivated ever since to to be careful with how you communicate it, and that it like a well-written press release helps a lot. Around the same time, by the way, we also published a GWAS on same-sex sexual behavior, where we did the same. We had a press release that we wrote and thought about very carefully. Normally when you find a gene for something, it used to be communicated as, hey, we found the gene for homosexuality or whatever.
Yes.
And now the title of the press release was, there is no gene for homosexuality. And then in the press release, we explained what a complex trait is and that it's influenced by many genetic variants and environmental influences. And so those became the headers of the newspaper articles as well. So you have control of how things are picked up by the media and then eventually by the people themselves. So that's something that I now spend time and energy on before publishing a paper.
Does it feel? I mean, I know that you get also a lot of adverse reactions on social media, on X, for example.
Yeah, usually
Like,
it's like
how
the same
do you
5 or 10 people.
It is. Yeah, I guess it is.
Like I know that like if you do something that like matters or is important or is good, and if you reach enough people, then there's always going to be a couple of people that don't like it or that misinterpret it. So I sort of made peace with that.
So you don't let it affect you.
No, maybe in the beginning. And then maybe in the beginning I used to go into a discussion with them, and then you find out quickly they're not interested in a discussion. They just... So I've become better in separating like what's real constructive criticism and what's just people that are just bored and want to make people feel bad online.
If you could only bring one thing to a deserted island, what would you bring?
I gave it some thought. First I was going to say my laptop, but that feels a bit like cheating.
Oh my God. This is the worst answer that I've ever heard to this question, honestly.
Let me clarify. By deserted island, I mean there is no power plant, there is no electric outlet. You're gonna have a brick.
Okay, well, in that case, assuming that there will be food and water, hopefully.
Food as in like animals, maybe? Plants?
I don't have to choose food to bring.
Well...
Here's the thing.
I'll take my chances. I'll assume that I will be able to find some food.
Fair.
I think I would bring an instrument that I can't play yet, like a guitar, and then try to see if I can figure it out. That would give me something to do, I think.
Very, very good.
Yeah, interesting.
I appreciate that answer a lot, actually.
Could you recommend our listeners one fiction book to read?
A fiction book. So I don't read that much fiction, but there was one I read quite recently from a comedian that I'm a big fan of. His name is Norm Macdonald, and his book is titled Based on a True Story. So it's not entirely fiction, it's based on his life, but it's also clearly, it has some clearly fictional elements because it's quite ridiculous. And I've noticed that I really like the way comedians think and write, and he's one of the greats. So I think I would recommend that.
Great.
So is there like one fun fact that you think that the listeners might not know about you that you're willing to share?
I guess that I think I used to be more fun.
We all used to be more fun.
It's called aging.
I think maybe like close to 20 years ago. In my 20s, I used to make a lot of hip-hop music on my computer.
Wow.
Does it exist online?
There's one song of mine that has been released actually by Universal Music. I'm not going to say what it's called. It's a bit embarrassing. You'll have to find it yourself.
I will find it.
And we'll put it in the link.
That is a very fun fact, actually.
We used to have this little group of friends, and then they used to come to my house and record on my beats. Yeah, well, those were fun times.
Right. So, Abdel Abdellaoui, social science geneticist and former hip hop artist, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.